Well, Molly, there's a lot going on in the NFL, even though the NFL has not been proactive so far, even though it's been silent, even though we have not heard any statements. I would imagine we're going to hear the NFL address its upcoming annual owners' meetings in Florida in a couple of weeks. It's hard to imagine that they're going to allow older people in a group setting to travel to Florida here in a couple of weeks. There's been no announcement because really there's no urgency as there is in the NBA right now. But the NBA was out front in this. It obviously made a huge statement. It looks great in doing that. And the NFL so far has been very quiet. But let me tell you what's going on behind the scenes. I think there are teams right now discussing whether or not to shut their training facilities. The Washington Redskins moments ago announced that their coaches and scouts no longer will be allowed to travel to pro days of college prospects. So that's now out the window for the Washington Redskins, and you could be sure that there'll be other teams that follow along. Again, we're waiting to hear from the NFL on the owners' meetings. We're waiting to hear from the NFL on the NFL draft, which it's discussed various options at this point in time. But you can't imagine being in Las Vegas in front of crowds of people, hundreds of thousands of people, as the league has done in previous years with the draft. That's illogical to think about. We are entering a new era here. Now, the other business at hand is the NFL new league year that is scheduled to begin next week on Wednesday at 4 Eastern, when teams are allowed to make moves. Now, again, this is not confirmed, but speculative. I'm hearing there is some discussion about potentially moving back the start of the league year. Now, the league has been very firm this week, up until now, that the league year will start Wednesday, 4 o'clock. But as we see all this news trickle in, as we see the NBA move to the forefront at the head of leading the charge here and showing real leadership, it's hard to imagine that the NFL is going to allow business to go on as usual next week, with players signing millions of dollars worth of contracts and press conferences and teams' facilities being shut. It just doesn't go together. And so we're waiting to hear something from the NFL, which has been quiet up until now, about how it's going to handle everything in regards to the league year that starts next week and the owners' meetings that are coming up in a couple of weeks.
Adam Schefter, appreciate you, man. Forgive me for going in this direction, but I'm just curious about it, so I must ask you. There's a collective bargaining negotiation that's going on as we speak, and we know the friction that has existed. I'm talking about internally with the Players Association. You got a lot of guys out there that don't agree with the proposal. They don't agree with Executive Director DeMaurice Smith's position. Players at meetings, from what I told Monday, went in on the executive director, really trying to neutralize what he was trying to bring to their attention. There's a lot of dissension within the ranks of the NFLPA. What kind of effect do you believe this virus can potentially have on these CBA negotiations?
Well, I would say this, Stephen A. Who believes or who feels more comfortable economically today than they did 1 or 2 weeks ago? There's nobody that could feel that way. That means the owners, that means the players. That means owners feel probably shaky about the deal. That means players probably have to look at this and say, are we going to get as good a deal when the market right now is tanking and it's hemorrhaging money at this point in time? So a lot of the votes have already been cast. So that's also interesting. I don't know how many ballots are still out there that have not been filled out, but there's still been encouragement for all players to get out and vote, whether you're for the CBA or against the CBA. But it's hard to think. We are living in a different era right now. We have not seen anything like this in our lifetimes. So I don't know if everybody's fully grasping the full scope of this as they factor that into the vote on the collective bargaining agreement, as insignificant as something like that now seems.
Adam, I can't help but to think the NFL lucked out here in a way. From the reputable sources that I've read, predictions, and these are just predictions because a lot is unknown about the coronavirus, are it will get much worse before it gets better. And people are saying 2 to 3 months seems to be the horizon that they're looking. The NFL season doesn't start till September. I mean, they have time to get it together. What, in terms of the timetable, does this actually affect if we're sitting down to regular season games and here's opening day or kickoff?
Right. Well, Max, there was one team I spoke to this morning, right, that was in touch with its medical staff and going over the various scenarios with the doctor. And let me be very clear. Again, the doctors know a lot more than we do. I'm just passing on what was told in that team's training facility. And this doctor said that if teams evacuate and everybody goes home and everybody's quarantined and everybody's on their own for a couple of weeks and we can figure out how to get the testing done and we can figure out who has the virus and who doesn't have the virus and what measures we should and shouldn't be taking. This belief of this particular team doctor was that we could help control it as best as we can. But if the proper steps aren't taken in the coming days, that this could obviously be a disaster. And we're already beginning to see hints of that right now. And who knows if we're already too late? None of us know these answers. I'm just passing along what one doctor said. They believe that if, again, the proper steps are taken now, it will go a long way towards helping the situation and not having it be as significant later on. So as that relates to the NFL season, you're right. If our country can get a hold of this and rein it in and keep it manageable, then yes, you would think the NFL season, as down the line as that seems, as insignificant as that seems, might be okay. But again, we are in uncharted waters that we have not been in before, and we do not know how widespread this is going to be.